Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
This episode, part 2 of Roll of the Classes. Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
In this episode, part 2 of Roll of the Classes, where we talk about the role of the character classes.
Yep.
And we're not going to hit upon every character class in Pathfinder, and definitely not in 5e, because I haven't had that much experience in 5e.
Tons of them.
Yeah. So last time we left off, we ended in the M's, and we're going to go to... And we're hitting upon kind of the base classes right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to hit upon the Paladin.
Oh, yeah, the Paladin.
The Angel Paladin, the knight in shining armor, the Dudley Do Right.
Yep. Everybody knows about this idea of the Paladin as being the lawful good Paladin who can't do anything wrong, who fights evil and that sort of thing. And actually they really do serve a purpose in a group because they provide a moral center for your group to keep you from getting too chaotic.
Because Paladin should be lawful good.
Yeah.
In fact, in first edition, you had to be lawful good. And if you broke any of your alignment, you would lose your Paladin abilities and couldn't get them back.
The thing that's always kind of because there is a class called an anti-Paladin.
Yes.
So what are they?
The anti-Paladin is the evil side of it.
Oh, okay.
The Mordred from... when you want to look at a Paladin, you look at a Paladin as Lancelot, or not even Lancelot. There was... I'm drawing a blank here.
Whatever his name was. You're looking at him.
But Mordred was actually considered the anti-Paladin.
Okay. Now, you had the Knights of the Round Table, and they were supposed to be upright and chivalrous, even though we all know in reality, Knights were very far from chivalrous, especially to the lower classes.
I think it was
Percival, Sir Parsifal.
Parsifal.
Well, I think there was Parsifal, and then there was Percival. And I think they're the same people.
Yeah.
It just depends on what culture you're from.
Now, I think the Paladin was actually truly based upon the book 3 Hearts and 3 Lions by Poul Anderson.
That I don't know about.
The character in that had this very strict code that he went by and wore, the armor and interesting book. If you've never read 3 Hearts and 3 Lions, I would highly suggest reading it, because that's actually, I think, where they got the idea of the troll from tabletop that regenerates and you had to destroy with fire.
Okay. The thing that's unique about a Paladin is they can fight with any weapon typically.
And wear heavy armor.
But they also have the Paladin's shield. It's supposed to be a big deal because they shield themselves and they shield others with that shield. And their mount. But so they almost always get a shield other, and then they almost always get a lot of weapon abilities so that they can use all sorts of hacking and slashing weapons. So
laying on hands.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. They can lay on hands.
Yeah, which is a quick. Oh, my partner, I'm fighting next to him. Boom, healing him. Oh, I'm taking damage. Heal myself. Yeah. Another one is detect evil.
Oh, sure. I mean, there was this whole idea that the master vampire in the valley is causing all sorts of trouble, and when they throw their evil spells, every level 12 paladin within 50 miles wakes up from it, and it goes like, "There's evil in the valley. I must ride."
Evil doer.
Yeah. So
Dudley Do Right.
So here come all these paladins with these glowing light shields heading towards the vampire, getting ready to do battle. So the thing about a paladin is that they're not afraid to die in defense of others, or they're not afraid to die fighting evil.
Right, and making sure if the party has to retreat, that they are the ones. Typically, a Paladin should be your last person out if you're trying to escape. If you're trying to flee, the Paladin wants to make sure that everyone else gets out safe, and then they get out of there.
Yeah. And they can do all that because they have all that shield defense, and they have all those high armor classes now.
And some spells and abilities.
Yeah.
I've actually, in all my life, only played a Paladin once.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
That was in... what campaign was that? It wasn't that long ago. I was playing a witch and a paladin.
Oh, okay.
two diametrically opposed characters.
Right.
And they were actually a couple. They were a same-sex couple.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the thing is even if when I ran across evil, I couldn't just attack it. I had to wait until the evil attacked me first.
That's true.
So
yeah.
And my father character was actually evil, and I couldn't do anything about it.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, that was really complex.
Very
complex storyline.
Had a lot of laws, and
Yeah.
of course, Paladin lives by the code, and probably one of the most famous paladins, and he's a doofus, and anybody knows the old cartoons is Dudley Do-Right.
Right.
Dudley Do-Right was a paladin. He was always out to save Gwen.
Yeah.
Oh, evil doer.
Yep. Yeah. And the thing about a paladin,
or in the gamers, you got the paladin.
oh yeah, look, there's evildoers out there. So
Paladin, we can't kill this guy. We can't abuse him.
Yeah.
The paladin's here. Well, let's tell the paladin there's evil out there. Oh, evil doer!
look outside, there's evildoers, and the paladin would go out, and then they would, beat up somebody. Paladins always have to have a strict code that they follow, and so if you're not playing your paladin correctly, most of the people in the group are going to jump on you pretty quick and say, "Hey, what kind of paladin are you? You're going to beat somebody up, or you're going to torture somebody.
You're going to allow us to torture somebody."
Yeah, you can't do that.
Paladin should never allow that because they're lawful and they're good.
Very lawful and they're very. That's their strength. That you get strength from being a good aligned, lawful aligned person. You get a lot of benefits from that. And a paladin is like a fighter with a moral conscience, and they try to protect the weak. They punish evil, but paladins are not murderers. No. They
if somebody surrenders, okay.
Yeah, they take them into custody and drop them off with the authorities. That's the whole deal. So, being a paladin, you got to be really careful about what you do.
Yeah.
You can't do anything unlawful. You can't do anything immoral. That's the problem with being a paladin. You get a lot of advantages. So a lot of people might think they're really not that fun to play. However, a character is really what you make of them. They can be fun to play. It's just you just got to learn how to play them right.
I remember Niter back in the first campaign was originally a paladin.
He was originally a paladin.
Then he converted over to being full-time cleric.
Yeah. Well, he had kind of a religious conversion. He was actually a wolf knight, kind of like a paladin. And then he had a religious conversion and became a cleric of Fenra. So he actually became way more religious. Right. After his encounter with a bunch of evil undead and people like that, he became more religious. So it just seemed to me to make a lot more sense that he would not be more of he would be less of a paladin, more of a cleric because of his association with his religion and his faith. So paladins. We've had a few of them in our groups. We had a Paladin of the Broken Urn.
Paladin of the Broken Urn. Now, the Paladin of the Broken Urn was a Paladin of beauty. He appreciated beauty.
And art and things like that. So, you can play those characters with a lot of variability and a lot of individuality. But just keep in mind what you're supposed to be doing as a Paladin. If you've got a rogue in your group, the two of them are always going to be button heads. They really are. And they should be. And half the time, the paladin will be throwing the handcuffs on the rogue, if they find out about what they're doing. So that's how you just got to be careful of the dynamics within your group, because if everybody plays their character accurately, you're going to have some serious issues. It's like a paladin and a sorcerer. Well, they may not, sorcerers tend to be pretty chaotic, so they may not go together very well,
And then if you throw in... one of the new races that they have in some of these games is the Asiri, which are the angelic, angelic, who are bastions of good. And, an Asiri paladin. And,
I think it'd be really cool to play like an archangel, to play like a paladin archangel.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be really awesome. They're dedicated to fighting evil. They're a paragon of good. You would just kind of always feel this serene sense of always being good.
Here would be a good one. A tiefling paladin. A tiefling who's touched by devils and demons, and they're trying to throw off that evil side of them. And
that would be complex.
Yeah.
That's almost like... Yeah, that would be really complex. I don't know how you'd be able to do that.
Because it's like Hellboy.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, Hellboy was way chaotic.
Yeah.
So, I don't think you can be chaotic good and be a paladin.
You can't. You have to be lawful.
Okay, so they would always... I don't think you could do it, because they would have to always have that lawful
could.
sense inside. Yeah, but if you had a dark side, even inside you, it would really negate.
It would be good role playing.
No, it would be good role play. It's something to look into.
Yeah.
You know.
Paladins are fun. I remember a guy I used to play with, and that's all he would play was Paladins.
Yeah.
But he was not a Paladin anyway, shape or the form.
Well, I mean, you can imagine yourself as being that way, you know. In my opinion, I would like to play like a really pure Paladin, at least once in a long-term campaign where, you know, because for me, just in my sense, it's easy to imagine being good, and it's always easy to imagine doing the right thing, you know. And the strengths that you get from being a good, decent person, you know, and how people look up to you and how people, you know, see you as sometimes as a natural leader and that sort of thing. It's an enormous responsibility, and that's the thing about a paladin. They have an enormous responsibility to be that paladin and to act a certain way.
Right. Rangers. Actually, Rangers are probably one of my most favorite characters to have played.
The very first character I ever played was a ranger.
Yeah, I've played a lot of Rangers in my life. I love Rangers.
Yep.
Now, Rangers, I guess you can kind of look at it as Aragorn.
Yeah, Aragorn.
Was a Ranger.
Yeah.
He's the epitome of a Ranger.
He was more like a fighter ranger, though, because he had a lot of fighting skills.
He was, but...
And then there was also other aspects of him because he was a king. So if you have a king who's a ranger, is he really a ranger or is he a king?
Yeah, he can be a ranger.
Well, he can have ranger tendencies, but he's still a king. So
Robin Hood would also be considered...
Robin Hood would be more of a ranger.
Yeah.
You know, because he was roguish, but he was really skilled in the wilderness and that sort of thing.
Yeah, he could survive. Now, rangers are your typical trackers and survivalists and scouts, and they...
Yeah.
Later on, they can either get an animal companion or they can make the party their companions.
Yep.
So they can buff the party in that way, or their animal companion can help them fight.
Yeah, there's also this idea of the urban ranger. There's someone who's so familiar with big cities that they can track through a city and exist in that environment. And
Ranger does not always have to be wilderness.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be wilderness. So rangers get stuff like most favored terrain, favored enemy, and they can use their favored terrain to a certain degree to help them. Improve their armor class, improve their hide, improve their stealth, and they can move across their favored terrain at a greater speed than most people can. So rangers get a lot of advantages. They're kind of a really cool mixture of rogue, fighter, and druid.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things where if you want to play someone that's got a lot of characteristics and a lot of advantages in different directions, a ranger's a good confluence to play.
Being sneaky, they're not as sneaky as your rogue, but they're sneaky, especially out in the wilderness, and especially if you don't wear the heavy armors.
Yeah,
they're wearing the lighter armors. Now, rangers get to pick right away if they're going to be a specialist in range or a specialist in two-weapon fighting, because we all know that two-weapon fighting, you take hits. Minuses to your hit, and having two weapons can be a real advantage. Now, I actually played a ranger / fighter in a campaign, and wow, she was quite potent because I was taking it where the feats. The DM was a person who loved to min-max, so I thought, well, I'll turn the tables on him and min-max. And this character, wow, she'd lay off her arrows and just. Or two-weapon fighting. So she had both long-range weapon and two-weapon fighting. So she was quite efficient with her combat skills.
Rangers, they can be really, really good fighters depending on how you play them. They can be very stealthy fighters.
And tracking. It's always good to have somebody who can track.
High survival rate.
And hide and know the wilds and the nature, or have their skills in geography and
because they have spells, they have magic abilities, which is kind of cool because then they can use magic device and spell check and things like
heal
that.
Themselves or
they
heal
can
the party.
Themselves or heal the party depending on what they do. There's a lot of advantages to playing rangers
or summoning animals to help fight allies.
And rangers just look cool. Whenever you see pictures of them, they always have like a green cloak, and they're wearing really cool leather armor, and sometimes they have a bow or a crossbow. A really, really good idea of a ranger is like in The Lord of the Rings, the elves a lot of times. You know, a lot of times the elvens were the elven folks were like rangers.
Well, you had the Rangers of what's the name of it?
Well, they had the Dunedain.
The Dunedain Rangers.
Yeah, the ones who were like up in the north. Yeah, they're protectors.
And
you know,
scouts.
And then of course you have Legolas, who's like the ultimate ranger. You know, that you could ever have. Is like, his dex must have been like 25.
See, now Legolas was kind of like that character I made, where I think they were kind of a fighter ranger. Because they were skilled in two-weapon fighting and range. And
Legolas can do anything, man. He's a fighter, but he's obviously, not a heavily armored fighter, but his ranger skills are fantastic. I mean, when he just looks at the ground and he says, 2 hobbits were here. One laid there. One laid here. That one went that way. And you're looking and it's just like some grass and you're like, well, I don't know how the hell he can see that. I'm just seeing some
he was tracking better than Aragorn.
Yeah, so, his abilities are fantastic.
Yeah. Rangers are fun. I love Rangers, but I haven't played one in a while.
I have a ranger character. He's not that particularly effective right now, but he will get to start being pretty effective once he gets a little higher.
Now, it's funny because in that campaign, Tom's fighter is the range and the ranger is the two-weapon.
Yeah, he's a two-weapon fighter.
Yeah.
I conceived him simply because we needed more of a fighter to kind of stand up and charge in.
You lost your hunter, and the hunter you had is kind of hunter was the ranger druid.
Yeah.
But the ranger druid wasn't being very effective in what they were doing, unfortunately.
No. That character was not being played effectively. So we needed somebody who could kind of take the place, but also be a fighter and be a survivalist and that sort of thing.
Right, and unfortunately, their hunter was killed.
Yeah,
but
oh
well. Sorcerer.
Sorcerer.
Tendelor was a sorcerer.
Tendelor. This is Tendelor right here.
The miniature of Tendelor.
Yeah. This is a really cool miniature because I couldn't find a figure that I liked. So I ordered this figure from Spain. And it's pretty expensive. And it's one of my best, I think, one of the best figures that I ever painted. Because Tendelor was a fire sorcerer. And he was chaotic neutral and he didn't care. He'd burn you. He would torture people. He would burn them. He would always say, I'm sorry, my friend, this is nothing personal, but we must get information from you. If you won't give information, I'm going to burn you. I'm going to tell you this beforehand. I'm going to burn you until you tell us what we want to know.
No, he had the infernal bloodline.
He did. He was draconic.
Yeah, so sorcerers have a bloodline that they pick from.
Yeah.
Whether it be from draconic, infernal, abyssal, elemental, whatever.
Yeah, he was draconic, and his specialty was fire.
And his skin was always warm.
Yeah, he was a lot hotter than most people. Like people are like 98.6 or whatever. He was in the hundreds, and he was hot. He would be hot, and his skin was really pink, and he had these bright golden shining slit eyes like a dragon would have. And he had a staff, and he had fire spells out the wazoo. And he came in handy a lot of times for burning people up. I mean, he really he caused a lot of damage, and he was fun to play because when you think about it, he can get away with just about anything because he was chaotic neutral. He could do evil things, he could do good things. It didn't matter. He was right. He was down the middle of the road, and everything he did, he just basically did because he thought he could do it and get away with it.
Now, the great thing about sorcerers is sorcerers don't memorize their spells. They draw upon as they need them.
Yep.
And they can cast more spells, but they don't get
as many spells.
They don't get as many spells or as quick. So when it comes to Fireball, they don't get them where a wizard would get them at 5th level. I think the sorcerer starts getting them at 7th level.
Yeah, but they get more of them.
Right.
So they're lower level spells. They get so cone of flames or cone of fire, that kind of thing. You get it eventually at like 2nd or 3rd level. But the thing is, you get more of them, so you can use them more times a day. And so, whereas a wizard would get 1 or 2 offensive spells like that, a sorcerer might get 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But they would only get like specially based spells, within that genre. So, and of course, like the idea of a sorcerer is sort of like a male witch. That's more like a warlock. But a sorcerer, I guess in my head, I always think of a sorcerer as being someone who draws energy from the things around them. Rocks, fire, elements, acid, whatever, and they use it and they channel it through their body and then use it as weaponry. And the sorcerers always have kind of a bad rep,
Yeah, sorcerers are squishy, so they're artillery. So they stand back and start lobbing spells in and start doing damage. And
they get a lot of
buffing party and debuffing the enemy and damaging the enemy. And
their armor results in a lot of spell check failures, because if you have any kind of heavy armor with a sorcerer and you have to roll for a 25% failure, chances are you're going to roll and fail quite often. So you got to be careful what you're doing with sorcerers. You can't play them like that to where they're going to be any kind of a frontline fighter. They're artillery from the back. They get up within 30 feet and throw out a cone of fire. Then they back up right away so they don't get slapped.
Now I remember a sorcerer I played in a game, and it was that other group we played with.
Okay.
And I remember there was one of the guys was the collecting of all the swords.
Oh, yeah.
The sentient swords.
The sentient swords.
And he would go into a fight. This character had all the sentient swords, and he would do like 3 attacks at 140 points of damage an attack. And I had a fireball spell that was selective. It was a selective fireball spell, and I could hit like 10 targets with it because I was 10th level. And each individual little fireball, would do 10d6 points of damage. And here I was, fireball, all these different targets at extremely long range, and I was taking him out, and he didn't like that.
Oh, man. You were stealing his thunder. That sentient sword dude was a real jerk. And the thing is about him is that he did not like the fact that someone might be stealing his thunder. And he kept saying to you over and over again, you're rolling that wrong. You're playing that wrong. You're rolling that up.
Shouldn't be allowed.
Or that book shouldn't even be allowed in our game. Yet he had the whole big book on his stupid-ass sentient swords, which I was just like, what are you doing, man? Where did all the swords come from? It was just, we didn't play in that campaign very long, or with those people very long, because they were a pack of weirdos. But, the thing is...
I liked playing her, though. She was fun.
Yeah. The idea of playing a sorcerer like that can be very fun, because, you're middle of the road, you get to choose your bloodlines, you can create a really, really interesting character. And
in fact, I think her bloodline was draconic, but I think she was of a gold dragon.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think she was from the gold dragon.
That makes sense. It seems to me like I had another character in that thing where I was dragon touched, and I wrote this huge background story that we were going to work on, and
we only got to touch barely upon both of ours.
Yeah, we just barely touched on it, and then the group was like kind of ridiculing my character because he had these dragon scales, these lucky dragon scales that gave him abilities. Somewhere I'll dig all those stories up somewhere, but I didn't like that group because they were a pack of elitist jerks, and I didn't like playing with them.
Yeah.
So, but that's another thing, is that when you bring a unique character to a group, to a gaming group, when you bring a unique character, let's just try to, accept that character as they are for a while, and not just turn around and start ridiculing them because you don't like them, or you don't like how they're being played. Not everybody, has to play... this kind of a fighter with a bad background who does 200 points of damage or whatever like that. Sometimes you can have people in your group who are a little bit different. Like you alluded, in the first episode that you had a same-sex couple in your group.
Yeah.
Well, can you imagine if you brought a same-sex couple into the group who are 2 characters, and you had another player in the group who ridiculed you because of that? How wonderful that would be, you know. I mean, it would be dehumanizing and soul destroying. So, the thing is about Pathfinder and D&D and role playing in general it should be to have fun, but it should also be inclusive. Bring people in who are different. Bring people in who want to be themselves. Bring people in who want to play somebody who's unusual and different. And don't turn it into this us versus them, and don't turn it into this kind of condescending, ridiculing situation.
But on that same line, if your DM has specific things for his campaign, follow along with the DM.
Well, sure, because it's the DM who creates the parameters of the campaign. Sure.
So we're getting sidetracked there.
Well, we always do.
We always do, as Tom said. So sorcerers are kind of fun. I actually enjoy them. It's kind of a powerful wizard without being a powerful wizard.
Yeah, a magic user with certain abilities that isn't really a squishy wizard. They're, they can do a lot of damage, and they can be really fun to play.
Yeah, sorcerers didn't exist in first edition or second edition. I think they came along in 3.5.
Probably.
Yeah. Now, the next class, I'm going to call it as a thief, but the actual name that they call it now is a rogue.
Yeah, rogue. Yeah.
The thief was taken from, they were the guy who pickpocketed and stole and
open locked doors
and sneak around
chests.
in the shadows, cover their face and sneak along and move along. But they changed that to be more culturally appropriate by calling them a rogue.
Yeah.
A rogue meaning someone who's kind of
roguish. They exist
roguish.
They exist outside of the actual, societal parameters. So they're sort of like criminals in a way.
Yeah, but they don't have to be.
Well, if you're a rogue, if you're a rogue by definition, you're some kind of a social outcast criminal of some kind.
Well, typically, yeah, but you don't have to play him as somebody who's always stealing from the party and.
No, you don't have to play him that way, but it just seems, the idea of a rogue is that they go rogue. They're away from the actual norm. They're away from the actual crowd, so they're going to be different in that sense.
One of the most famous thieves or / rogues was from Dragonlance. Tasselhoff Burfoot, the Kinder, which is kind of like a halfling, and he was always taking stuff from the party. It's like he'd pull out his dagger, and the dwarf would say, "Hey, that's my dagger," and it's like, "This is your dagger? Oh, I was just holding on to it. You dropped it, and I found it." And everyone's like, "Oh, you stupid, Tasselhoff Burfoot." And he's like, "Here's the dagger," and next thing you know, it's missing again, because that's the way he was. And of course, the rogue is kind of roughly based upon Bilbo Baggins, the burglar.
Yeah, you're right.
Stealing the Arkenstone from the dragon and going in and sneaking into the dragon and getting the dwarves out of trouble.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea that you have when you play the rogue or the thief, is that, his idea was to go down into Smaug's hoard and steal the Arkenstone. So you want a thief, you want someone who's sneaky, who has a great amount of dexterity. They're totally not a fighter, although they can backstab.
Yeah.
And do certain fighting techniques like that. Thieves and rogues, they're a little bit different than, because there initially was a kind of a D&D class called Assassin, and they played them. And do you remember that?
Yes, the original Assassin from first edition.
Yeah, the Assassin. Then they had to get rid of him because people complained so much about having an assassin in your group. It's like, what do you have an assassin? They're a murderer. And it's like, well, no, they're actually like a thief or a rogue. And so they had to kind of vanilla it up a little bit so that you didn't have this idea. So moms against, D&D, wouldn't get all mad about it, because your kids were playing assassins and stuff like that. So
I pulled off a book here. Gary Gygax, Knight Errant. This is one of his books, but this is Gord the Rogue, a famous book that Gygax wrote. And I actually wrote these.
I thought it was Gord the Barbarian.
Nope, it's Gord the Rogue.
Oh, it even says Gord the Rogue right there.
Yeah, that's what they called him. And it's quite an entertaining book if you've never read any of them.
Wow, the D&D art's pretty cool, man. The giant vulture with the wizard and the wand.
Now, this is after I think Gygax was gone from TSR, was when this one was wrote. But I've got 4 of them.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gord the Rogue. Well,
I've played a few rogues.
And, of course, Fafhrd and Grey Mouser.
Yeah.
I think Grey Mouser was kind of a thief-type rogue from Fritz Lieber.
Yeah. I've played a few rogues, and they're fun to play. They truly are. You get to indulge in all sorts of weird behavior when you're a rogue. You're not bound by the regular ethics and rules of society. You can pickpocket, you can deceive people, you can do all sorts of stuff, and it's really fun.
You used to make somebody so mad.
Yeah.
Because you were playing your halfling like almost like Tasselhoff was.
Yeah. He was a sticky-fingered guy, He would work a party.
Wouldn't get into a fight and would hide and then sneak around. Now, we actually have, in our current campaign, we have a guy who's playing a rogue, and unfortunately, he hasn't been quite so effective on his backstabbing. He kind of gets in there, and then he just kind of starts missing all the time, his dice rolls. But rogues can be quite deadly.
Rogues can be really deadly in the right setting.
Yeah.
When you have rogues out in the wilderness fighting giants, Rogues might as well just kind of sit back and kind of let the stuff unfold because they're not really that effective. Rogues are backstabbers. They're sticky-fingered. They're finding traps. That's what rogues are good for.
Which is kind of a great thing if you've got somebody who can cast invisibility.
Yeah.
Cast it on your rogue because then your rogue can sneak in without getting hit.
Exactly.
And then start dealing. If they can hit.
Yeah.
Buff your rogue up.
Yeah.
Give them invisibility. Now he can hit, and now he's doing his regular damage plus he's doing. Or they're doing 2d6, 3d6, 4d6 of sneak attack damage, and if they can fight with 2 weapons, they're doing that with both weapons.
It's a really good way to play a rogue that isn't really supposed to be a frontline fighter as a fighter. So they can do a lot. They can be very effective. And being a rogue is just kind of fun.
Now, do you remember the second Conan movie? There was a little sneaky guy.
There was.
Like, oh, I found the trap.
yeah. That was it was played by the actor Tracy Walter, who really looked like a really good sneaky rogue. Terrible movie, folks, but it's really kind of a cheesy fantasy. It didn't have the kind of operatic, serious qualities of the first Conan. The second Conan was more of a cheesy adventure story. That, it's really cool to sit back with some popcorn and root beer right now and watch it and just kind of laugh because it's so cheesy, but it's also fun because of all the, it's right out of something like this. It truly is, the sword swinger, the thief, the queen, the corrupt demon, the bodyguard, that sort of thing. They're all in there.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about that the other night when I was watching the intro to that. As a side, I really love the music to Conan the Barbarian, and Basil Polidorus did the music also to Conan the Destroyer, and it sounds a lot like the first Conan music. But the intro of it, where they're racing across the desert, and they have these wagons with cages on them and stuff like that, and there's a whip. It's like, this is just straight out of an adventure book like this. This is really kind of cool like that. It's pure fantasy. And rogues exist best within those kind of fantasy elements because they do stuff like sticky finger. They're picking locks, sneaking around. They're opening the chest. They're the guy who always has the dagger up his sleeve. And sometimes rogues can save the day. They can sneak up and backstab the guy just enough.
Gather information.
Gather information. Pretend like there's somebody else. When I play a rogue, I always have disguise self because typically what I do is I have a halfling rogue, and halflings get advantages to being sneaky and being dexterous. And I always have disguise self, and I disguise myself as a human child. And then I go around with an alms bowl, and I say, please alms, please alms. If I don't come home with some alms, my mother will beat me. And while they're digging in their purse, giving me some alms, I'm like reaching up and pulling their purse away. Hey, someone stole my purse. It wasn't that little kid. He's just going around. He looks all raggedy. They think somebody else stole their purse, and pretty soon there's this fight.
I saw somebody.
Yeah. And then, of course, they're very persuasive. Like, hey, kid, you see anybody? Oh, sir, I saw the big brute with the axe run down that alley. Of course, let's go, Ben. And they go running on down the alley, and you're like, yeah, hell, I got a 20 persuade. I can roll it up, and there's no way they can beat that.
Now, of course, a rogue gets a lot of skill points.
They do. They get a lot of skill points.
And then if you dump points into intelligence, they start getting even more.
You get even more.
So, really, you start looking at your rogue. Dex should be their number one.
Dex
Charisma and int.
Yeah, Dex, Charisma, and int. Charisma, so you can disguise yourself and do things like that. Int, so you get a ton of skill points. And Dex, so that you could tumble in and out of situations. You can climb. You can hide. You can move fast while you're stealthy.
Pick the lock.
Rogues are just really fun to play.
And then,
they truly are.
Start looking at strength after that, and strength and con.
Yeah.
If you have the points, but definitely, your Dex, your Charisma, and your int.
Yeah.
So get those skills up, and of course they're kind of they can know a lot too. Mm-hmm. So they have a lot of, they can have knowledges, almost like a bard in that respect. And in fact, that game that that they didn't like the bard, and he figured that you could just play a rogue that had musical skills.
Yeah, and I think that's what we did. I think I played a rogue, and he pretended he was an actual bard, and he had performance, and so he would perform, and he had a really high performance.
Yeah,
but he was actually just a rogue. So, but I played him as a bard.
You were halfling too in that one.
Yeah, as a halfling. So I could get around this idea that our DM did not like bards for some reason.
So wizards, like Wizards of the Tower.
Yeah.
The person who knows everything. Now,
Yeah.
Wizards and Wizards of the Tower, to kind of start it off here, the wizard is the person you go to in the tower who's got all the information.
Exactly.
And has all the knowledge. But a wizard is also knows lots of spells.
Yep.
But they have lots of knowledge.
They have lots of knowledge. They know lots of spells, but they can't use them all the time. It just kind of depends. They can only use them once or twice. So they have a lot, but they can't use them a lot.
Right.
So that's one of the disadvantages of being a wizard. Of course, wizards can do all kind of things. They can fly. They can use magic device. I mean, here's a good example. There's the wizard right there. He's got a wand. He's zapping the giant vulture. You know, he's in the vulture's foot. You know, and he's being crushed, and he's zapping with a lightning bolt. So wizards, you know, are really, really cool to play, but they can be hard to play.
They're another form of artillery, like your sorcerer. But they also are great at buffing and debuffing.
Yeah, yeah. They can cloud people's minds. They can cloud judgment. They can do all sorts of things.
Go invisible, cast invisibility.
Wizards can be played really well, but they can also be abused as a class. And we've had a guy who abused his wizard status in our class, in our game, by doing these outlandish magical stunts, and took advantage of his knowledge of the rules. He was a real rules lawyer. And he took advantage of what was going on with the DM, and it ended up to I think it ended up to our game breaking up.
Yeah. Now, of course, when you think of wizard, you think of Merlin.
Sure.
You think of Gandalf.
Gandalf, yeah.
The Magician's Apprentice.
Yep.
Little Mickey Mouse. And
yeah. Yep. Yeah, you think it's the Sorcerer's
Apprentice. Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
But when I think of a wizard, I think of kind of like Gandalf or Merlin. Yeah. They have lots of spells. They have tons of knowledge. They can either be good or bad.
And Dragon Slayer. The dragon. They go to the wizard's tower.
Yeah, that's right.
And they have the wizard, and he's got his apprentice there, and they go off to slay the dragon.
You know, that is a movie I really think we should watch again, because I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
That was one of those movies that came out...
Because at the end, the wizard kills the dragon.
Yeah, that was one of those movies that came out in the very early 80s. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of fantasy out there. Mm-hmm. You know, there was Excalibur, Conan the Barbarian, Beastmaster... Wizards, but that was kind of a cartoon kind of thing. But yet there was also Dragon Slayer, and I think we're going to try to take a look at that again.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
I remember the dragon in that when they
Vermithrax Pezeractive.
When they did the mats and the modeling of that dragon, I remember the thing flying around like that and coming down on people. I saw it in the theater, and I was just like, "Oh, the dragon!" It was coming right at you. And it was really, really something.
And it was a different dragon. It wasn't the dragon that you typically see with the four legs. It used it was more like a bat. It used its front legs.
Yeah, it moved around on its wings and as its legs.
As a bat would on the ground.
Yeah. It was a really interesting, kind of cool storyline.
I had a figure of that miniature, or that dragon.
Yeah.
I want a miniature of it. But anyway, wizards, they're quite fun. And, you stand back and lob the spells in, or fly and lightning bolt or fireball or whatever, but they're great for damage and they are the collectors of knowledge.
Yeah. Wizards, to me, I've never played a wizard. I think I tried to play a wizard once and it didn't.
You're going to. You got a figure there that you were actually going to play a wizard. It's kind of like the Merlin type.
I remember that guy, and we never did get that game off the ground. He was going to be a wizard. And of course, he's got his owl.
Oh, of course. In the very first campaign I was running, there was Finn the old wizard.
Oh yeah,
and he started off his first level. He was this old guy. And,
oh
yeah, I remember. And he started off his first level that he had a late life wizarding experience.
Yeah, he was an old man, and he was very knowledgeable and very very experienced.
Yeah, Finn. And that character actually ended up leaving the game, so we took Finn, and Finn joined the monastery and started getting knowledge, and he became an NPC for the parties to go to gain knowledge.
He became an NPC. Information. It was really cool because we could go back to him, and he always had information because he'd been in the monastery studying the books all the time, and it was cool.
Yeah.
Wizards with their whole broad, knowledge of all these different spells can be very, very, very useful. They have all kinds of stuff. They can cloud people's minds. They can move matter. They can teleport things. They can do all sorts of things. They can't do it over and over and over again, but they can do they're like a sorcerer, but they can do all these different broad types of spells. And so that's why they're really, really useful.
Another good wizard? Legend of the Seeker.
Oh, yes. Now that's a wizard. And of course, wizards, they have their own agendas, which that wizard did.
Played by
Bruce Spence.
Bruce Spence from Mad Max fame. He was great as a wizard. I loved his wizard.
I cannot think of that guy's character's name in that book, in that movie, in that TV show. But he was like what I would consider to be the sort of the prototypical wizard.
Yeah.
Very knowledgeable. He had this, he had a lot of magic. He could do just all sorts of things, and it was really, really cool.
Yeah, had a lot of information.
Yeah. Wizards, you always get this idea they're kind of awkward. They're real tall and gangly, and they're kind of moving around. They're kind of awkward, and they dress in these big, long robes with magical symbols all over.
Pockets all over.
Yeah, and they have a staff, and they shake the staff, and big beards and pointy hats. A lot of that comes from the idea.
Well, Merlin and Gandalf.
Well, Merlin and Gandalf, yes, but a lot of that is from, I think his name, he was Queen Elizabeth's.
Oh yeah,
that was Dr. D, or whatever his name was, Thomas D. I think.
Yeah, she would go to him for information.
He was her prognosticator. He was the one who would tell read the stars and tell the future. Dr. John D. And because they persecuted wizards during that time period in England,
burn them at stake.
Burn them at the stake. But he was one of the only ones who was left alone. And he is considered by many to be the prototype. This kind of a fighter with a bad background who does 200 points of damage or whatever like that. Sometimes you can have people in your group who are a little bit different. Like you alluded, in the first episode that you had a same-sex couple in your group.
Yeah.
Well, can you imagine if you brought a same-sex couple into the group who are two characters, and you had another player in the group who ridiculed you because of that? How wonderful that would be, you know. I mean, it would be dehumanizing and soul destroying. So, the thing is about Pathfinder and D&D and role playing in general is it should be to have fun, but it should also be inclusive. Bring people in who are different. Bring people in who want to be themselves. Bring people in who want to play somebody who's unusual and different. And don't turn it into this us versus them, and don't turn it into this kind of condescending, ridiculing situation.
But on that same line, if your DM has specific things for his campaign, follow along with the DM.
Well, sure, because it's the DM who creates the parameters of the campaign. Sure.
So we're getting sidetracked there.
Well, we always do.
We always do, as Tom said. So sorcerers are kind of fun. I actually enjoy them. It's kind of a powerful wizard without being a powerful wizard.
Yeah, a magic user with certain abilities that isn't really a squishy wizard. They're they can do a lot of damage and they can be really fun to play.
Yeah, sorcerers didn't exist in first edition or second edition. I think they came along in 3.5.
Probably.
Yeah. Now, the next class, I'm going to call it as a thief, but the actual name that they call it now is a rogue.
Yeah, rogue. Yeah.
The thief was taken from, they were the guy who pickpocketed and stole and
open locked doors
and sneak around in the shadows, cover their face and sneak along and move along. But they changed that to be more culturally appropriate by calling them a rogue.
Yeah.
A rogue means someone who's kind of
roguish. They exist they exist outside of the actual, societal parameters. So they're sort of like criminals in a way.
Yeah, but they don't have to be.
Well, if you're a rogue, if you're a rogue by definition, you're some kind of a social outcast criminal of some kind.
Well, typically, yeah, but you don't have to play him as somebody who's always stealing from the party and.
No, you don't have to play him that way, but it just seems, the idea of a rogue is that they go rogue. They're away from the actual norm. They're away from the actual crowd, so they're going to be different in that sense.
One of the most famous thieves or / rogues was from Dragonlance, Tasselhoff Burfoot, the Kinder, which is kind of like a halfling, and he was always taking stuff from the party. It's like he'd pull out his dagger, and the dwarf would say, "Hey, that's my dagger," and it's like, "This is your dagger? Oh, I was just holding on to it. You dropped it, and I found it." And everyone's like, "Oh, you stupid, Tasselhoff Burfoot." And he's like, "Here's the dagger." And next thing you know, it's missing again, because that's the way he was. And of course, the rogue is kind of roughly based upon Bilbo Baggins, the burglar.
Yeah, you're right.
Stealing the Arkenstone from the dragon and going in and sneaking into the dragon and getting the dwarves out of trouble.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea that you have when you play the rogue or the thief, is that, his idea was to go down into Smaug's hoard and steal the Arkenstone. So you want a thief, you want someone who's sneaky, who has a great amount of dexterity. They're totally not a fighter, although they can backstab. Yeah. And do certain fighting techniques like that. Thieves and rogues, they're a little bit different than, because there initially was a kind of a D&D class called Assassin, and they played them. And do you remember that?
Yes, the original Assassin from first edition.
Yeah, the Assassin. Then they had to get rid of him because people complained so much about having an assassin in your group. It's like, what do you have an assassin? They're a murderer. And it's like, well, no, they're actually like a thief or a rogue. And so they had to kind of vanilla it up a little bit so that you didn't have this idea. So moms against, D&D, wouldn't get all mad about it, because your kids were playing assassins and stuff like that. So
I pulled off a book here. Gary Gygax, Knight Errant, this is one of his books, but this is Gord the Rogue, a famous book that Gygax wrote. And I actually wrote these.
I thought it was Gord the Barbarian.
Nope, it's Gord the Rogue.
Oh, it even says Gord the Rogue right there.
Yeah, that's what they called him. And it's quite an entertaining book if you've never read any of them.
Wow, that D&D art's pretty cool, man. The giant vulture with the wizard and the wand.
Now, this is after I think Gygax was gone from TSR, was when this one was wrote. But I've got 4 of them.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gord the Rogue.
Well, I've played a few rogues.
And, of course, Fafford and Grey Mouser.
Yeah.
I think Grey Mouser was kind of a thief-type rogue from Fritz Lieber.
Yeah. I've played a few rogues, and they're fun to play. They truly are. You get to indulge in all sorts of weird behavior when you're a rogue. You're not bound by the regular ethics and rules of society. You can pickpocket, you can deceive people, you can do all sorts of stuff, and it's really fun.
You used to make somebody so mad.
Yeah.
Because you were playing your halfling like almost like Tasselhoff was.
Yeah. He was a sticky-fingered guy, He would work a party.
Wouldn't get into a fight and would hide and then sneak around. Now, we actually have, in our current campaign, we have a guy who's playing a rogue, and unfortunately, he hasn't been quite so effective on his backstabbing. He kind of gets in there, and then he just kind of starts missing all the time, his dice rolls. But rogues can be quite deadly.
rogues can be really deadly in the right setting.
Yeah.
When you have rogues out in the wilderness fighting giants, rogues might as well just kind of sit back and kind of let the stuff unfold because they're not really that effective. Rogues are backstabbers. They're sticky-fingered. They're finding traps. That's what rogues are good for.
Which is kind of a great thing if you've got somebody who can cast invisibility.
Yeah.
Cast it on your rogue because then your rogue can sneak in without getting hit.
Exactly.
And then start dealing. If they can hit.
Yeah.
Buff your rogue up.
Yeah.
Give them invisibility. Now he can hit, and now he's doing his regular damage plus he's doing. Or they're doing 2d6, 3d6, 4d6 of sneak attack damage, and if they can fight with 2 weapons, they're doing that with both weapons.
It's a really good way to play a rogue that isn't really supposed to be a frontline fighter as a fighter. So they can do a lot. They can be very effective. And being a rogue is just kind of fun.
Now, do you remember the second Conan movie? There was a little sneaky guy.
There was.
Like, oh, I found the trap.
yeah. That was it was played by the actor Tracy Walter, who really looked like a really good sneaky rogue. Terrible movie, folks, but it's really kind of a cheesy fantasy. It didn't have the kind of operatic, serious qualities of the first Conan. The second Conan was more of a cheesy adventure story. That, it's really cool to sit back with some popcorn and root beer right now and watch it and just kind of laugh because it's so cheesy, but it's also fun because of all the it's right out of something like this. It truly is. The sword swinger, the thief, the queen, the corrupt demon, the bodyguard, that sort of thing. They're all in there.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about that the other night when I was watching the intro to that. As a side, I really love the music to Conan the Barbarian, and Basil Polidorus did the music also to Conan the Destroyer, and it sounds a lot like the first Conan music. But the intro of it, where they're racing across the desert, and they have these wagons with cages on them and stuff like that, and there's a whip. It's like, this is just straight out of an adventure book like this. This is really kind of cool like that. It's pure fantasy. And rogues exist best within those kind of fantasy elements because they do stuff like sticky finger, they're picking locks,
sneaking around,
they're opening the chest. They're the guy who always has the dagger up his sleeve. And sometimes rogues can save the day. They can sneak up and backstab the guy just enough.
Information.
Gather information, pretend like there's somebody else. When I play a rogue, I always have disguise self because typically what I do is I have a halfling rogue, and halflings get advantages to being sneaky and being dexterous. And I always have disguise self, and I disguise myself as a human child. And then I go around with an alms bowl, and I say, please alms, please alms. If I don't come home with some alms, my mother will beat me. And while they're digging in their purse, giving me some alms, I'm like reaching up and pulling their purse away. Hey, someone stole my purse. It wasn't that little kid. He's just going around. He looks all raggedy. They think somebody else stole their purse, and pretty soon there's this fight.
I saw somebody.
Yeah. And then, of course, they're very persuasive. Like, hey, kid, you see anybody? Oh, sir, I saw the big brute with the axe run down that alley. Of course, let's go, Ben. And they go running on down the alley, and you're like, yeah, hell, I got a 20 persuade. I can roll it up, and there's no way they can beat that.
Now, of course, a rogue gets a lot of skill points.
They do. They get a lot of skill points.
And then if you dump points into intelligence, you start getting even more.
You get even more.
So, really, you start looking at your rogue. Dex should be their number one.
Dex
Charisma and int.
Yeah, Dex, Charisma, and int. Charisma so you can disguise yourself and do things like that. Int so you get a ton of skill points. And Dex so that you can tumble in and out of situations. You can climb. You can hide. You can move fast while you're stealthy.
Pick the lock.
Rogues are just really fun to play.
And then,
they truly
then start looking at strength after that, and strength and con.
Yeah.
If you have the points, but definitely your Dex, your Charisma, and your int.
Yeah.
So get those skills up, and of course they're kind of they can know a lot too. Mm-hmm. So they can have knowledges, almost like a bard in that respect. And in fact, that game with that they didn't like the bard, and he figured that you could just play a rogue that had musical skills.
Yeah, and I think that's what we did. I think I played a rogue, and he pretended he was an actual bard. And he had performance, and so he would perform, and he had a really high performance.
Yeah.
But he was actually just a rogue. So, but I played him as a bard.
You were halfling too in that one.
Yeah, I was a halfling. So I could get around this idea that our DM did not like bards for some reason.
So wizards, like Wizards of the Tower.
Yeah.
The person who knows everything. Now,
Yeah.
Wizards and Wizards of the Tower, to kind of start it off here, the wizard is the person you go to in the tower who's got all the information.
Exactly.
And has all the knowledge. But a wizard is also knows lots of spells.
Yep.
But they have lots of knowledge.
They have lots of knowledge. They know lots of spells, but they can't use them all the time. It just kind of depends. They can only use them once or twice. So they have a lot, but they can't use them a lot.
Right.
So that's one of the disadvantages of being a wizard. Of course, wizards can do all kind of things. They can fly. They can use magic device. I mean, here's a good example. There's the wizard right there. He's got a wand. He's zapping the giant vulture. You know, he's in the vulture's foot. You know, and he's being crushed, and he's zapping him with a lightning bolt. So wizards, you know, are really, really cool to play, but they can be hard to play.
They're another form of artillery, like your sorcerer. But they also are great at buffing and debuffing.
Yeah, yeah. They can cloud people's minds. They can cloud judgment. They can do all sorts of things.
Go invisible, cast invisibility.
Wizards can be played really well, but they can also be abused as a class. And we've had a guy who abused his wizard status in our class, in our game, by doing these outlandish magical stunts, and took advantage of his knowledge of the rules. He was a real rules lawyer. And he took advantage of what was going on with the DM, and it ended up to I think it ended up to our game breaking up.
Yeah. Now, of course, when you think of wizard, you think of Merlin.
Sure.
You think of Gandalf.
Gandalf, yeah.
The Magician's Apprentice.
Yep.
Little Mickey Mouse. And
yeah. Yep. Yeah, you think it's the Sorcerer's
Apprentice. Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
But when I think of a wizard, I think of kind of like Gandalf or Merlin. Yeah. They have lots of spells. They have tons of knowledge. They can either be good or bad.
And Dragon Slayer. The dragon. They go to the wizard's tower.
Yeah, that's right.
And they have the wizard, and he's got his apprentice there, and they go off to slay the dragon.
You know, that is a movie I really think we should watch again, because I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
That was one of those movies that came out.
Because at the end, the wizard kills the dragon.
Yeah, that was one of those movies that came out in the very early 80s. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of fantasy out there. Mm-hmm. You know, there was Excalibur, Conan the Barbarian, Beastmaster, Wizards, but that was kind of a cartoon kind of thing. But yet there was also Dragon Slayer, and I think we're going to try to take a look at that again.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
I remember the dragon in that when they
Vermithrax Pezeractive.
When they did the mats and the modeling of that dragon. I remember the thing flying around like that and coming down on people. I saw it in the theater, and I was just like, "Oh, the dragon!" It was coming right at you. And it was really, really something.
And it was a different dragon. It wasn't the dragon that you typically see with the four legs. It used it was more like a bat. It used its front legs.
Yeah, it moved around on its wings and as its legs.
As a bat would on the ground.
Yeah. It was a really interesting, kind of cool storyline.
I had a figure of that miniature, or that dragon.
Yeah.
I want a miniature of it. But anyway, wizards, they're quite fun. And, you stand back and lob the spells in, or fly and lightning bolt or fireball or whatever, but they're great for damage, and and they are the collectors of knowledge.
Yeah. Wizards, to me, I've never played a wizard. I think I tried to play a wizard once, and it didn't.
Going to. You got a figure there that you were actually going to play a wizard. It's kind of like the Merlin type.
I remember that guy, and we never did get that game off the ground. He was going to be a wizard. And of course, he's got his owl.
Oh, of course. In the very first campaign I was running, there was Finn, the old wizard.
Oh yeah,
and he started off his first level. He was this old guy. And, oh yeah, I remember. And he started off his first level that he had a late life wizarding experience.
Yeah, he was an old man, and he was very knowledgeable and very very experienced.
Yeah, Finn. And that character actually ended up leaving the game, so we took Finn, and Finn joined the monastery and started getting knowledge, and he became an NPC for the parties to go to gain knowledge.
He became
to
an
get
NPC.
Information.
It was really cool because we could go back to him, and he always had information because he'd been in the monastery studying the books all the time, and it was cool.
Yeah.
Wizards with their whole broad, knowledge of all these different spells can be very, very, very useful. They have all kinds of stuff. They can cloud people's minds. They can move matter. They can teleport things. They can do all sorts of things. They can't do it over and over and over again, but they can do they're like a sorcerer, but they can do all these different broad types of spells. And so that's why they're really, really useful.
Another good wizard? Legend of the Seeker.
Oh, yes. Now that's a wizard. And of course, wizards, they have their own agendas, which that wizard did.
Played by
Bruce Spence.
Bruce Spence from Mad Max fame. He was great as a wizard. Loved his wizard.
I cannot think of that guy's character's name in that book, in that movie, in that TV show. But he was like what I would consider to be the sort of the prototypical wizard.
Yeah.
Very knowledgeable. He had this, he had a lot of magic. He could do just all sorts of things, and it was really, really cool.
Yeah, had a lot of information.
Yeah. Wizards, you always get this idea they're kind of awkward. They're real tall and gangly, and they're kind of moving around. They're kind of awkward, and they dress in these big, long robes with magical symbols all over.
Pockets all over.
Yep, and they have a staff, and they shake the staff, have big beards and pointy hats. A lot of that comes from the idea.
Well, Merlin and Gandalf.
Well, Merlin and Gandalf, yes, but a lot of that is from, I think his name, he was Queen Elizabeth's.
Oh yeah,
that was Dr. D, or whatever his name was, Thomas D. I think.
Yeah, she would go to him for information.
He was her prognosticator. He was the one who would tell read the stars and tell the future. Dr. John D. And because they persecuted wizards during that time period in England,
burn them at stake.
At the stake. But he was one of the only ones who was left alone. And he is considered by many to be the prototypical wizard because he did have the robe with the magical symbols all over it. He had a pointy hat. He had the big beard. And, he messed around with alchemy. He lived in a tower all by himself. He was very mysterious. He was very learned. He was very intelligent. People feared him.
Yeah.
Because he had a real powerful hold over Queen Elizabeth. And she would always go see him, and she'd, what should I do? What should I do? Well, the stars say, take the path, that the path may take you. And she'd be like, oh, yeah, I got to do that. And they always have their founts of knowledge and stuff like that. So that's really, really cool.
Now, of course, another famous one from history, and they always call him the Mad Monk, was Rasputin, was actually considered a wizard.
They thought he was a wizard,
because of the things that he would do.
Yeah, he was really good at mesmerizing and controlling people's minds. Apparently, he had hooks into people, and he could manipulate them through their weaknesses. So with the wizardy abilities and that sort of thing, of course, I don't know if you would call Aleister Crowley a wizard or a warlock or a sorcerer, but he was considered almost to be sort of like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to end the second part of Roll of the Classes, and we'll be coming back for a third and fourth episode because there's a lot of classes to hit upon. And we're not even going to hit upon all of them, but we're going to hit upon those that we really kind of know and have experience with. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching another episode of Wizards of the Tower.
Role play.
And may all your adventures be epic.
And keep on rolling.
And also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Thanks, folks.